Phil Mickelson is being accused by golf fans of using an illegal alignment trick, and the viral video has turned one unusual setup into a full rules trial. Viewers believe the six-time major champion used a club on the green to map his target line before playing the shot. Phil has spent decades finding angles that ordinary golfers cannot even see. Apparently, some fans now think he has started finding angles inside the rulebook too. Yet, a strange-looking routine is not automatically cheating, and one tiny detail decides whether this was clever preparation or a punishable breach. The footage looks suspicious at normal speed, but slowing it down exposes a rules distinction many angry viewers have completely missed. What did Phil actually place on the ground? When did he take his stance? And did the move provide forbidden help? Subscribe if golf's hidden rules matter to you. Then tell us, smart gamesmanship or illegal assistance? The clip created instant outrage because alignment is one of golf's quiet battles. Television shows the swing, the ball flight, and the reaction. It rarely shows how much work happens before the club moves. Elite players study slopes, choose intermediate targets, square the club face, settle their feet, and build a picture connecting the ball to a distant landing area. Change that picture by 1 degree, and a perfect strike can finish in a bunker. That sensitivity explains why golfers use alignment rods during practice. A rod on the turf gives the eyes a clean reference. One can show the target line, while another helps position the feet, hips, or shoulders. Coaches love them because human vision is unreliable. A golfer may feel square while aiming several yards right. The little stick does not flatter anyone. It simply sits there and reports the embarrassing news. During a competitive round, however, the rules of golf draw a hard line. Rule 10.2b protects golf as a personal test of judgment and skill. A player must not set an object down to help with aiming, taking a stance, or making a swing. The rule specifically includes a club placed on the ground to show the intended direction or foot position. Removing that object before the stroke does not automatically repair the breach. That last sentence caused much of the anger around Phil's clip. Fans saw a club used near the ball, watched Mickelson organize himself, and reached an immediate verdict. Object down, line checked, case closed. Social media performed its usual legal ceremony, no witnesses, no cross-examination, and sentencing completed before the replay had finished buffering. But golf rules are painfully exact. They care about what happened, why it happened, whether the player remained in contact with the object, and when the stance began. A club resting freely on the ground can be an alignment aid. A club head positioned behind the ball while the player still holds the club can be part of an allowed aiming routine. Those two pictures may look almost identical from a distant camera. That difference changes everything. But here is what most viewers still get wrong. Rule 10 does not ban every use of a club to check direction. It bans setting an object down as outside assistance, and setting down has a precise meaning. The official rule says an object is set down when it touches the ground, and the player is not touching it. That wording matters. If Mickelson placed a second club flat on the green, released it, and used its shaft as a guide for his feet or target, the action would fit the prohibited example closely. The club would become a temporary aiming device. Picking it up later would not erase the act. If Phil kept a hand on the club throughout the routine, the analysis becomes different. Clarification 10.2 B3/1 allows a player to stand behind the ball, place the club head on the ground perpendicular to the line of play, and walk around into position while continuing to hold the club. The player is using the chosen playing club, not abandoning an object as a manufactured guide. That may sound like rulebook gymnastics. It is still the published distinction. Golf allows players to aim their club face, otherwise every normal address would become suspicious. The restriction begins when equipment is converted into a separate reference that remains on the ground without the player's touch. Contact is not a decorative technicality. It separates the club being controlled from the object providing independent help. The video, therefore, needs to answer 4 questions. First, was Phil holding the club every moment it touched the surface? Second, did he release it long enough for the shaft or head to serve as a fixed guide? Third, had he started taking his stance while that guide remained in position? Finally, was the action clearly intended to establish aim rather than inspect the lie, test reach, or prepare a lawful stroke? Camera angle complicates every answer. A hand hidden behind Mickelson's leg can appear separated from the grip. A club head viewed from above may look flat when only its sole touches the grass. A brief edit can remove the second before or after the controversial moment. Slow motion gives viewers more time, but it does not create an angle the camera never captured. Intent matters, although it cannot rescue an action that plainly meets the rule. A player cannot place a club on the line, claim he was admiring the paint, and expect officials to applaud the creativity. Committees judge actions from all available evidence, including the player's routine, the object's position, the timing, and any statement made afterward. Golf trusts players, but trust is not a magic invisibility cloak. The penalty would be serious. A breach of Rule 10.2b brings the general penalty. In stroke play, that normally means 2 strokes. In match play, it means loss of hole. At LIV Golf, where 1 or 2 shots can change individual places and team totals, a penalty can affect prize money, points, and the standings of 3 other players. Alignment may look small. The scoreboard does not care. That is why the word cheated should not be thrown around lazily. A rules breach and cheating are not automatically the same thing. A player can misunderstand a rule, perform a routine carelessly, and deserve a penalty without acting dishonestly. Cheating requires a much heavier claim, knowing the action is forbidden and deliberately using it to gain an advantage or conceal the truth. Mickelson's history makes the accusation spread faster. He has always treated the rules of golf as a strategic document, not a ceremonial book gathering dust in a clubhouse. Fans have watched him request rulings, examine relief options, and search for every legal path around trouble. Admirers call that intelligence. Critics call it manipulation whenever the result benefits him. The same behavior becomes genius or villainy depending on which cap the viewer purchased. His most infamous rules moment came at the 2018 U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. On the 13th green, a frustrated Mickelson deliberately struck his moving ball before it could roll farther away. Officials applied a 2-stroke penalty under the rule covering a player who makes a stroke at a moving ball. Many observers argued the conduct deserved disqualification for a serious breach of the game's spirit. Phil later said he understood the penalty and used the rule strategically because allowing the ball to continue rolling might have produced a worse score. That explanation hardened opinions. Supporters saw a player accepting the stated consequence. Critics saw someone using a penalty like a paid shortcut. Golf, which enjoys presenting itself as morally cleaner than freshly washed white trousers, suddenly looked rather uncomfortable. Another unusual episode occurred during a 2021 PGA Tour Champions event. Mickelson's ball moved after he had cleared loose material near it on pine straw. A rules official asked whether Phil was virtually certain he had caused the movement. Mickelson said he was not. No penalty followed, and he won the tournament by 2 strokes. Again, the issue rested on a precise standard rather than public suspicion. Those episodes do not prove the current allegation. Past controversy is context, not evidence. A courtroom does not convict someone because the audience remembers an earlier argument. Golf fans should apply the same discipline. The alignment clip must stand or fall on its own frames, its own sequence, and the exact language of Rule 10. Here is the uncomfortable twist. The more familiar viewers are with Phil's reputation for exploring rules, the easier it becomes to mistake expectation for proof. Suspicion explains the reaction, but it cannot supply the missing frame. Now consider the strongest case against him. If the video clearly shows Mickelson placing a separate club on the putting surface, removing both hands, stepping into his stance, and matching his feet or club face to that object, then the rule is straightforward. He received help from a physical reference that players are forbidden to create during a round. Whether the club remained there for 10 seconds or half a second would not change the purpose, nor could Phil avoid the penalty simply by lifting it before striking the ball. That escape existed in some golfers' memories from older interpretations, but the modern rule deliberately closes it. Once the object has been set down to help aim or take the stance, the breach has occurred. The rule prevents a player from building a perfect guide, absorbing the information, then removing the evidence before swinging. Critics would also ask why an experienced champion needed such an odd routine. Mickelson has played professional golf for decades. He knows alignment rods belong on the practice ground. He understands that television cameras surround featured groups. If the movement truly crossed the line, claiming innocent confusion would sound thinner than a downhill lie on dry summer grass, yet the defense remains powerful if his hand never left the club. The official clarification was written for almost this exact visual problem. A player can position the club head behind the ball while standing on the line, maintain control of the club, and walk into the stance. From a side angle, the shaft may briefly resemble an alignment bar. Legally, it remains the instrument the player is holding and preparing to swing. The distinction also preserves ordinary putting routines. Players commonly crouch behind the ball, choose a spot, place the putter behind it, and shuffle their feet into position. They may look between the face and the hole several times. None of that becomes illegal merely because the putter helps them aim. Golf has to allow a player to use a club as a club. Another defense concerns the meaning of taking a stance. The rule identifies that stage when a player has at least 1 foot in position for the intended stroke. Simply walking around the ball or standing nearby does not always mean the stance has begun. However, this timing defense cannot cure the separate act of setting an object down for alignment. It matters mainly when officials examine connected restrictions, including caddy positioning. Officials reviewing Phil's video would not count angry comments. They would seek the original continuous footage, speak with Mickelson and his caddy, identify the club involved, and determine whether he maintained contact. They might consult other camera angles or testimony from the group. A 30-second social clip can start an inquiry. It should not finish one when essential facts remain outside the frame. LIV Golf would also need to communicate any ruling clearly. Silence invites fans to write their own explanation, usually in capital letters. If officials reviewed the move and found it legal, they should identify the relevant clarification. If they found a breach, they should state the penalty and its effect on the result. Transparency protects both the field and the accused player. Some fans distrust LIV's internal oversight because the league markets stars aggressively and relies heavily on team identities. That concern makes independent rules enforcement even more important. A famous captain cannot receive a friendlier interpretation than a reserve player. Golf's credibility depends on the same language applying whether the golfer has 6 majors, no majors, or a social media following consisting mainly of close relatives. However, there is no fair basis to declare a cover-up merely because the clip looks odd. Suspicion needs evidence. The R&A and USGA rule exists publicly, and its clarification gives viewers a real test. Release plus alignment purpose points toward a breach. Continuous hand contact while positioning the club head points toward a lawful routine. The analysis is technical, but it is not mysterious. Golf has always lived between self-policing and outside review. Players are expected to know the rules and report breaches. Officials protect the field. Cameras add another layer by exposing details that playing partners may miss. That system works only when viewers distinguish a question from a verdict. Otherwise, every unusual motion becomes cheating, and every replay becomes a courtroom with a merchandise tent. Phil's reputation ensures that calm analysis will struggle. He remains one of golf's most creative shot makers and one of its most divisive figures. His move to LIV, his public battles with the PGA Tour, his gambling disclosures, and earlier rules controversies have divided fans into hardened camps. One side sees a fearless disruptor. The other sees a man always searching for a line that bends without officially breaking. That history gives the video emotional power, but Rule 10 gives it legal meaning. The final verdict must come from the moment of release. Did Mickelson stop touching the club while it served as a directional guide? If yes, officials have a strong basis for a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play. If no, the accusation loses its central support. So the video proves that Phil used an unusual alignment routine, but it does not automatically prove that he cheated. The decisive evidence is uninterrupted footage showing whether he released the club and converted it into a separate aiming aid. Mickelson deserves no special protection. If complete footage establishes the breach, the penalty should be applied and the result corrected. His name, contract, and major record should change nothing. Protecting the field means protecting every competitor from forbidden assistance, including assistance disguised as a familiar routine. Equally, critics should not upgrade ambiguity into dishonesty. Calling someone a cheater can damage a reputation far beyond one scorecard. Fans can question the act, demand a ruling, and debate the interpretation without pretending they possess facts the camera failed to record. That is not softness, it is accuracy. For now, the alleged trick remains a legitimate rules controversy rather than proven cheating. One hand, one club, and one missing instant separate a legal setup from a two-shot violation. Phil built a career around tiny margins. This time, the smallest margin may ultimately decide how the entire golf world judges him. Drop legal or penalty in the comments and explain what you saw. Subscribe for sharp golf breakdowns because the next replay may reveal the frame that finally settles this argument.